The helm is yours, Chairman.
Okay, everyone, please apologize the background noise. I got a little construction work going on today. I'll try and mute when I'm not speaking. So before calling the meeting to order, I ask the commissioners to refrain from using the chat feature on Zoom. All questions should be made publicly unless it is a computer connectivity issue, in which case staff can help with that. At this time, I'd like to ask Commissioner Desmond Haumea if he'd be willing to make a pule.
Aloha everybody, aloha mai kako, aloha kakahiaka. E pule kako, ena akoa, e o mai kiai, mai ka po mai, e nana ia ka mokupuni o mawinu ia ka mo. Mai luna o lalo, mai kahikihi, kahikihi, mai ka hikina a ke komohana mai ka uka o ke kai, mai loko o waho. Kia ia malama ia e pale aka i nā ho'opilikia ana i ka maui no hona mama ua noa. Alele wale ia maui no ia ka ma. Amene, amene, amene.
Thank you, Commissioner Desmond. So I'd like to call for order, and I'm just confirming with staff that we have the YouTube live stream and the Zoom recording.
Confirmed.
Thank you. Aloha mai kako. Good morning, everyone. The hybrid meeting of the Cultural Resources Commission will now come to order. Quorum has been established with 6 members in attendance. I'm sorry, I see 7 now. Could you confirm, staff?
Confirmed.
7, and it is 10:03 a.m. Pursuant to Act 220, Session Laws of Hawaii 2021, which amended the Sunshine Law to allow meetings to be remotely conducted online, effective January 1st, 2022, the Cultural Resources Commission will host a hybrid meeting of online and in-person participants. An in-person location has been identified on the agenda for the public to provide testimony on agenda items and to view the meeting. This meeting can also be viewed live online. A link to the YouTube live stream is provided on the county website. The video recording will remain on the YouTube channel for those who are not able to watch it live. Reports and surveys reviewed during this hearing are available on the county website. Commissioners, please be reminded that only one person may speak at a time. Raise your hand to be recognized if you have a question or a comment. Commissioners, please introduce yourselves and report if others are present in your location. I'll start. My name is Aaron Spielman, and there are others present in my location, a couple of workers, and just working here. Commissioner Kealoha.
Hi, aloha, good morning. My name is Kealoha Kini. I'm at home and no one else is present.
Thank you. Commissioner Kilohana. Oh, sorry, not with us today. Sorry. Commissioner Ku'ule.
Kakahiaka no kako o wawo ku'ule kia lani. No one is with me at my home today. Mahalo.
Thank you. And Commissioner Nicole.
Aloha mai kako. I'm Nicole Louie. My mama, my sister, and my cousin, and my 2 dogs are home with me today.
Thank you. I see Commissioner Scott Mahoney here.
Yeah, aloha, Commissioner Mahoney. I'm here alone.
Sorry, and I skipped over here. Sorry, Commissioner Matthew Clark.
Aloha, Chair. Commissioner Matthew Clark. I'm alone in my office today.
Thank you. And Commissioner Desmond Haumea.
Aloha, Kodeski. Aloha.
Well, okay. CRC staff support joining us today are Kevin Sullivan, planner, Jean Campbell, Deputy Corporation Counsel, and a big aloha welcome and introducing here Ashley De Vera, our new temporarily assigned board secretary for the Cultural Resources Commission. I'll mention here briefly that unfortunately Kim Tanaka is leaving this position, and her support and contributions will be missed. On behalf of the CRC, we wish Kim the best and everything going forward. So thank you. Pursuant to Hawaii Revised Statutes 92-3, interested persons who want to provide oral testimony may do so either at the beginning of the meeting when the board takes public statements on the agenda or immediately before the specific agenda item is called. Staff, please indicate if there are any members of the public wishing to provide testimony online or in person.
Thank you, Chairman. We do have two members of the public here present. Do you guys want to give testimony? You can do it now, or if it's specific to one of the agenda items, you have the option to wait. You want
We're here for agenda item number 2.
Okay, great.
And I'm Marlene Hapame, and we will do it at the time of item number 2.
Terrific. Thank you.
And this is Laura Ruby, and I'm doing the presenting for item number 2 for the Andrade property also. And I'm here with my kitty.
Awesome. Thank you for providing public testimony today. Old business of the commission. I'd like to start with agenda item number 1, if that's okay, staff.
Yes, please.
This is for the Ho'omalu Workforce Housing Project in Waikoloa, PL-CRC-2023-000005. Location, Waikoloa, Ahupua'a, South Kohala District, Island of Hawaiʻi. TMKs 36-9-008:032. Aloha mai kako. On July 20th, we, the CRC, transmitted our recommendation letter to State Historic Preservation Division, including our opinion of substantial impacts to historic assets. Due to the historic and cultural significance of the property, the CRC recommended that the property's sites and features be preserved to the maximum extent possible. The CRC further recommended the project be re-agendized for additional review and consultation in furtherance of completing the preservation plan and data recovery plan for the project. So we are here today to review and comment on the applicant's current draft data recovery plan and draft preservation plan. During our review, we consider public testimony, the State Historic Preservation Officer's reviews and comments, as well as the cultural significance of the site and its surroundings, along with any applicable Secretary of the Interior standards. CRC does have the option of revising, amending their initial opinion or comments from the previous letter based on mitigation and preservation activities currently being planned, proposed for the development sites. We can also create new comments specifically for the mitigation and preservation aspects. The applicant is here with a presentation and is interested in CRC feedback on whether the preservation plans are in line with what CRC recommends. To the degree it is or isn't, we can make motions to direct staff to prepare a new revised opinion and or a new comment letter for the project as desired. I'd like to go ahead and ask at this time if there's any members of the public wishing to provide testimony on this agenda item.
Nobody present, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. I'll close the public testimony on this agenda item. I'd like to thank and ask the applicant or representative to introduce themselves and members of their team and provide the presentation if one is available. And we'll follow that with discussion. So I'll turn it over to, I think it was Mr. Scott Head or Mr. Ren Kimura.
Aloha, Chair, Commissioners, and members of the Cultural Resources Commission. On behalf of Ho'omalu at Waikoloa LP, the developer of this project, my name is Ren Kimura, and I'm a project manager at Stanford Car Development. Today, I'm joined with Solomon Ka'ilihiva of Kuli'iwi Archaeology, Scott Head of Waikoloa Land Company, and Stanford Car of Stanford Car Development. We would like to thank you all today for the opportunity to speak with the Cultural Resources Commission. If it is okay with you, Chair Spillman, and the commissioners, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Ka'ilihiva to present Ho'omalu at Waikoloa's draft data recovery plan and site preservation plan.
Thank you. Yes, please continue.
Good morning, Commissioner Spillman and commissioners of the Cultural Resource Commission. My name is Solomon Ka'ihiva of Kuli'iwi Archaeology. Just to start off, as you mentioned previously, we received the letter after SHPD did on July 20th, and we have incorporated your comments into the AIS, which is still under SHPD review. We are currently working with SHPD to get the AIS over the finish line and accepted by them. July 28th was when we resubmitted our AIS. On September 28th, the development team met with SHPD leadership with Dr. Lebo and Dr. Downer to consult with them on any further steps that need to be taken for the AIS approval. During that meeting, it was agreed that there would be a LiDAR survey of all of the sites within the existing project area, as well as overflow outside of the project area in order to give context to the area that will be preserved, as well as the area that will be not preserved. And it was agreed that the LiDAR survey would be part of the preservation component. And so we'll be adding that into the preservation plan as soon as we receive comments from SHPD for this. And they have asked that the LiDAR be done prior to the commencement of construction as an additional record of the surface features that would be able to be seen using this technique. And so the current site preservation plan that we have before you was based on our original, or our revised submittal to SHPD. And in it, we drafted it based off of the original comments from Na'alehele, Alakahakai, the Cultural Resources Commission, as well as descendants of the area. And during that time, the site plan was actually adjusted in order to make the preservation area larger than it was originally, to include a approximate 3.8 acre area of additional preservation. And so the site preservation plan, it details the immediate short-term and long-term conservation measures for the features recommended for preservation. And so that includes the temporary and permanent buffers to be defined. In this case, the buffer along the western preservation area. If I may, can I share my screen?
Yes, you should be able to.
Super, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
And Solomon, sorry to interrupt, but if you could briefly explain LiDAR for those of those in attendance that aren't familiar with that.
Okay. LiDAR is it's a remote sensing technique that utilizes light and radio waves to, in this case, it would be from either, it's an aerial platform, either a drone or airplane or helicopter, but it would fly over and shoots out lasers, and it collects millions, even billions of points that can be used to then create the ground surface of the project area. Oftentimes, it'll be, the neat thing about this project area is there's very little vegetation, so there won't be a lot of noise that has to get filtered out when the ground surface is created. It's the only drawback to LiDAR is the amount of data and the amount of processing power needed to process that data, just because of the amount of points collected. And depending on what resolution you want, in order to be able to see the features in this case, it's going to be a lot, especially because we need something below a 1 foot resolution at that point in order to be able to see a lot of what's out there. And it's going to miss the majority. Just to give some background on the types of features that are out here. We did, Hana and Associates at the time recorded approximately 10,400 features in the project area. And the majority of those, 99% of them, were linked to abrader and manufacturing and resource procurement for manufacturing abraders. So a majority of the manufacturing features are what we call slicks, and they're very they're basically created by rubbing the rocks on the ground just to give them a rough cleaning, and it's actually very hard to discern with the eye. We did a lot of it by feeling with hands, with our hands, and also our feet. So a ladder's not going to pick that up, but it will pick up a lot of the excavations out there, as well as the caves openings that we have. And so this map that I have shared is showing the current architectural plan, as well as the areas designated, recommended for preservation. On the west side is the main area of preservation, which is approximately 3.8 acres. Then we have one site, one feature outside, and that is 5694A, which is a petroglyph. And the temporary buffers and the permanent buffers are the same in this case. We have a 30-foot buffer with a 5-foot transition zone. And so for the western side, the buffer is a minimum 35 feet from the trails out within that area. And then we added the project proponent, Sanford Car Development, added more area to the preserve by moving the building. So if you look at the buildings on the west side, there originally in the site plan were 2 buildings here, but the architectural plan was changed, and they took out 1 building and created a 3rd building type with 3 stories. And that's what they've done in order to help preserve the amount of units for the workforce housing. And it substantially increased this area on the western portion. And so the temporary the temporary buffer will be fenced prior to construction with orange fencing. And then once construction's done, the western preserve area will have a vegetated buffer. And the petroglyphs will have a wall measuring approximately 2 feet high by 18 inches wide. And the 5-foot transition zones will extend on the outside of the wall and vegetation markings. And the plan also calls for site maintenance by the landowner to make sure that the sites aren't impacted by traffic through the area, through people walking or litter. And we also have annual site condition inspections to ensure that there's no degradation happening to the features. And access will be for landowner, as well as we are proposing to do appropriate cultural use for some of the features within the preservation zone. I know Commissioner Kinney had asked about at previous meetings about being able to go and harvest abrader material, and if practitioners were interested in harvesting the material as well as creating abraders for woodworking. And so there we have a provision for access in there, and then signage is in development, as well as putting warning signs, as well as possible interpretive signs. And so that is the main part of the preservation plan. So for the data recovery plan, the site was data recovered during a previous study back in the late 80s by PHRI. And SHPD has asked us to do further data recovery on the site to mitigate the adverse effects to site 5694, which will be caused by the plan development. And they asked us to incorporate more modern techniques that were not available in the late 80s. So in the late 80s, they did a lot of analysis, visual analysis of the geochemical makeup of the features to see if rocks within Waikoloa were distinct from abraders that were used elsewhere or from elsewhere, and to help, provide trade networks and to see how materials were traded throughout the islands. So we proposed to do, it's called EDXRF, which is an X-ray fluorescence. It's basically you take the material and you stick it in their machine, in their scanner, and it shoots it with X-ray fluorescence, and the chemical signature is revealed based on the light patterns that come out of that. So we created the plan based on consultation with Dr. Peter Mills of the Geoarchaeology Laboratory in UHilo. And we proposed to collect and analyze 200 samples comprised of basalt tools and raw basalt materials. And then that will help us build upon the data recovery efforts previously conducted by PHRI. And we'll be able to synthesize that all together to give better context of what was going on and learn as much as we can for this. So, and as I stated, we added this Western preservation areas, approximately 3.8 acres, and it is adjacent to the previous site 5694 preservation area, which was approximately 3.17 acres. And it gives us almost 7 acres of preservation, continuous preservation abutting the development. And one thing that we need to add too is that on the western boundary of the project area is also the preservation for the trails that go through the area, through the King's Trail and the Forerunner Trail that are connected to it. So within this 3.8 acres, it's only 15% of the actual project area, but it contains 22% of the actual features, or 22 to 23% of the actual features that we recorded within the project area. It includes 83% of the temporary habitation sites, 7 of the 8 trails that we recorded, 33% of the markers, which were mounds in the area, 1 of the 2 petroglyphs that were recorded, 21% of the abrader sticks, 31% of the abraded basins, 22% of the excavations, 15% of the prospecting areas, and 35% of the mounds. And so, yeah, that's in a nutshell, that is what our preservation plan and data recovery plan are covering. If there are any questions at this time.
Thank you, Solomon. I just quick question. The area that's noted in the middle says area intended to be undisturbed based upon the site plan highlighted.
Yeah.
Is that at all part of the preservation plan, or is it considered separately?
It's what that area is. Their construction is going to stay away from that part if they can, because they're putting the buildings in and they're trying to also make it a habitable area. So they're not sure how much will be encroached by landscaping into that area once they go through with the final.
Okay, and then same question on that 5-foot transitional loop or the circular element 5694-A.
Yeah.
Center bottom.
Yeah, 5694-A is the petroglyph.
Okay.
And that's the set 30-foot buffer with the 5-foot transition on that guy.
Thank you for clarifying. I'll go ahead and open it up to other commissioners that may have questions at this time.
Mahalo. I just have a couple of questions for you, Solomon. So the chemical signature revelation, I guess we'll say, has not been done yet, or you've already reached out to Peter and have the samples been done and taken? And so do we know the mama mountain of the rocks there? Do we have that information yet?
Not yet. That's pending SHPD acceptance of the data recovery plan. So that's what this process is. But we did reach out to Peter and discuss what we would do. So it's EDXRF, but he also has a electron microscope that he said we could run a small sample as well to get further information of the makeup of these rocks.
Cool. Well, I look forward to that. That's exciting. And then my next question actually has to do with the sites themselves, the abrader sites, the slicks and whatnot. In your professional knowledge base and whatnot, is there any or a good sense perhaps of how long it would take? And I mean, of course, you know, seeing the depth and how amazing these sites are, I would imagine that again, this is kind of maybe more just for my own kind of curiosity, but how long would it take for some of those more deep abrader sites to have been created? I'm sure it's more than a couple of decades to get that kind of depth. Do you guys have a sense if it took a couple of centuries to get that deep? I'm again just trying to understand, right, the site better, and because it is epic and it is so unique. But I just wonder about how long would it be that our kupuna were doing that to get what we see today.
Right. And, you know, during the late 80s and the early 90s, when this area was first was studied by PHRI, part of SHBD's requirements for their data recovery was to actually go and try and recreate to figure out the time and how intensive the labor was during all this. So in the Jensen report from 1991, they sent out 2 field archaeologists to do their experimental archaeology. And so what they had 2 basic parameters. They selected the raw material, which were scoria blocks for use in grinding, which most closely resemble the type of material from the finished artifacts manufactured, and to create a basin. And the basin was to be considered complete when it looked like other basins in the area. And when it had achieved their calculated average size and depth dimensions from their study. So their basin averages were about 45 centimeters by 25 centimeters by 1.4 centimeters deep. So that's basically just over a foot by just under a foot. And just under an inch deep. So they went out and were out there for a week working. And for those, the parameters for those basins, it took them they timed it as 41 and a half working hours, and they were able to create 34 fully worked tools and preforms. And for their individual basins, they were able to create the 8 basins in that time. So they were saying in that time, about to get just over a centimeter in depth, it was about 5 to 6.5 hours of rubbing the tool and produce 6 to 10 tools based on the density of the rocks. So yeah, it was really intensive.
Just for comparison, for us American guys, 1 centimeter, that's 3/8 of an inch.
Roughly.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's just under half an inch. Because you're looking at centimeters, an inch is 2.54 centimeters. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question.
Yep.
I had a couple, but Ku'ele already asked them already. So mahalo Ku'ele. But I just wanted to make sure I heard you correct, because there was a lot of ancestral activity in that area. You said there's no vegetation?
No, it's bear, pohoihoi, and
Okay, interesting.
Yeah,
All right, that's it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, the stuff we did note out there was just small little scrub things here and there, but it wasn't anything big. It was like maybe a patch of grass here and there, or uhaloa here and there.
No uhaloa.
There was a little bit, yeah, here and there.
Yeah, okay. All right. Mahalo. Thank you, Solomon.
Oh,
Mahalo.
you're welcome.
Good to see you, bro.
Do any other commissioners have any questions they'd like to ask the team? I see Commissioner Clark's hands up. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, good morning. I was wondering about, well, first off, with the LiDAR, that you said that's going to be added into one of the plans, either data recovery or preservation planning. And are you going to, I guess you mentioned how long it would take to process. Is that going to be done before construction is allowed? Or is it just going to be, you take the LiDAR and then work on processing it while everything's going on? That's my first question.
I know right now that Stanford Carr is working on getting a quote from surveyors to run the LiDAR. But I think the goal would be to have it done before ground is broken.
And then I'm curious, we discussed maybe I think at the last meeting, educational. Is there any, will there be any plans to provide educational opportunities for kids by maybe being able to view the LiDAR, or some display at the, what will be done with it, how it will be curated, and how it will be shared?
That is a good question. I think it would be easy enough to incorporate something like that once the data has all been processed, to be able to create and make 3D images for people to be able to look at.
This is Stanford Carr, if I may.
Yep.
Good morning. Thanks for having us. So with the richness of the culture and history of this, we typically weave this into all of our communities. We always research the genealogy, the mo'olelos, wherever we build, and we'll incorporate it. With respect to what we have here, the rich history and the quarry, a greater quarry, we plan to incorporate and feature that, archive it within the community center that you see at the front entry. That'll be for the whole community. It's also, that building will serve as a child care early learning center for the community, for not only people who live within Ho'omalu, but for people who work in the area. So yeah, our plan is to celebrate it and to honor the history.
Thank you. That helps. And then also, I guess, for the abraders and the tools that are collected for EDXRF, those also might be curated in the community center.
Yes.
And that'll be specified in the preservation plan, I suppose.
Yeah, well, maybe in the data recovery plan as well.
Data recovery plan.
Because they will be analyzed in the lab as well. So with the measurements and weights and descriptions.
Okay, and then has Nalahele expressed any interest in public access along any of the trails through here?
They have, and I believe that for the trails, it's especially 5680S, which is the trail at the northwest corner that comes off of the Foreigner Trail. I do believe it's supposed to be public access.
Okay, and I think I'd like to suggest that because there's going to be a whole bunch of people living here and maybe access along a trail, maybe some interpretive signage would be appropriate for especially for the quarry site, and maybe is also at the petroglyph where you'll have that old low wall, but just to inform people what's in there and provide some context for what they're looking at. I don't know how other commissioners feel like about that, but I think in this case it would be warranted, at least along the buffers where people will be living.
That's a great point, Commissioner Clark. Thanks for asking those questions and bringing up the interpretive signage.
Yeah, we'll include that. We also have some utilizing shrubbery for demarcation of the preservation sites.
Very good. Any other commissioners that I can call on? Any questions for the team? Okay. Mr. Kimura, was there any other, or Mr. Carr, were there any other informations or presentations that we were looking at today?
No, that would be it from us.
And do you have any questions for the commission?
No, just appreciate the time and effort in discussing this review over the past 7-8 months.
Thank you for keeping us informed and showing us this information.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Chairman, staff has if you don't mind, staff has a few questions.
And I also see Laura Ruby's hand up. And so maybe we call on her too. If staff wants to ask some questions, please proceed, staff.
Yeah, one question I have of the applicant is based on what are your elevation change anticipations on either side of the blue lines? I assume you've done preliminary engineering for sort of cut and fill. I know the LiDAR will greatly inform that, but I'm curious as to what sort of grade difference would be anticipated in these transition areas between development and preservation. That's one question. The second question is regarding the LiDAR and who is driving the accuracy level for collection. If you have a anticipated level of resolution or accuracy, I think I heard something less than a foot. And I don't know if you can comment on that. I understand if you're still getting estimates for the work.
Yeah, we are out with a very well-qualified survey firm that we've been working with for over 30 years.
Terrific.
We've used LiDAR before and found it to be pretty accurate. We already have a topographic survey of the site with 2-foot contours. As far as the specific grade differential on the blue line, as you go to the east, the property picks up grade. But I can't, without seeing the finished grading plans in front of me, I can't answer that off the top of my head.
Okay. And then for the LiDAR collect, there are cave features there. And I'm curious if there's been any discussion on incorporating base stations as well, because just a plan view LiDAR won't always capture inside of a cave, right? Because it's going, it's usually from above.
Yeah.
So it takes a slightly different technique you got to be on the ground then to capture the sort of oblique. And I don't know if there's been discussion of that with SHPD or not.
Solomon, you want to address what we found with respect to, so I don't know if you qualify as a cave or a void.
Yeah, no, I think speaking with SHPD, it was looking at the surface features and not so much as recording the interiors of the caves.
Okay.
With that.
Thank you, staff. I'll
Thank
go
you.
ahead and call on Laura Ruby here to join us. If you can please unmute.
Yes,
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. A few quick questions. First of all, I'm very happy that the CRC is up and running again after COVID times and everything. But I have quick questions about this, and maybe it's because I don't have the whole document in front of me. But is the workforce housing largely ILWU, and are you consulting with them in the ways in which the housing is developed? Looks very much like a camp structure of many, many years ago. The other question is, I think somebody mentioned the Alaloa, but the trails that you have in here are sort of discontinuous. Is there a plan to show the trails that have been found and the connection to the Alaloa? Thank you.
With respect to the ILWU, we've worked with and had discussions with people in the workforce that commute, out to the Kohala Coast from as far as Hilo. It's 4 hours a day, and that was one of the driving forces of deciding to incorporate a child care early learning center within the community, because many people live and commute from Hilo because they have family to assist in child care. As far as we haven't discussed this with the LW, we have discussed it with the major employers there in Waikoloa. The community is open. It's to the income limitations for qualified households based on household size. And we're subject to the Federal Fair Housing Act. So you can't discriminate. With respect to the trails, I'll defer to Solomon on that. Solomon.
Yeah, the Alaloa, the trails are right on the border on the western side of the property. And so 5680S is the only one that actually connects to it. The other two, the other complex down in the southwest corner, 5694G, a lot of those trails, what's missing from this map, because this is just the site architectural plan with the preservation areas on it. 5694F is a series of temporary habitations, and these trails are connecting through the temporary habitations to other portions of the lava flow and other portions of the work area. And then trails 5694Q and P were identified as resource gathering trails. So they're just trails going between different nodes of resources where people were working and gathering and manufacturing debris. But over here on the east end, these trails were taken out long before this project was started, but they are going to add those back in somehow. And they're going to reflect the trail segments and the landscaping and with interpretive signage to go through and just to show people what more of the trails were in the area. But to the west, it's not clear with this map, but you can see all the trails are evident on the ground surface out there for people walking in the area.
Thank you.
And I guess one more quick question. You talked about the braiding.
Interrupt.
All right.
Excuse
Oh,
me.
sorry.
Sorry, all. This is Jean Campbell, the Deputy Corporation Counsel for the group here. I'm afraid that I have to cut you off, Ms. Ruby. And Chair Spielman. The meeting has to be conducted with the Robert's Rules of Order as the format. And this is a fact-finding period for the commissioners. And so I'm afraid it's inappropriate for non-commissioners to be asking questions of the applicant. So if the commissioners have questions of the applicant that are, fact-finding questions, those are entirely appropriate. But it isn't, I'm afraid it's not an opportunity for, just an open discussion. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Jean, for clarifying on that. Thanks, everybody, for learning with us. Okay, so do any commissioners have any other questions at this time for the project team? Looks like we've answered all the questions at this time. I'd like to thank the applicant and the representative for the meeting. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm going to ask for a motion. What I'm asking the CRC members is to formulate motions which may include, and this is in accordance with CRC Rule 4-3B as in boy. 1, a request for more information about the project, or 2, a recommendation including any possible modifications, mitigation measures, or suggestions and comments regarding the proposal. The recommendation may include a revised or maintained opinion as to whether the project is A, not likely to impact a historic asset, 2, will likely have a limited but acceptable impact on a historic asset, or 3, will likely have a substantial impact on a historic asset. And motion should include direction to staff to prepare the commission's recommendation for a chair signature. If anyone needs me to repeat any of that, please let me know. And just a reminder, we're talking about the preservation plan today. I think I said that in the opening.
That's correct. And I can give a reminder on what the last letter included, if anybody
that would be super to do that.
finds that helpful. So just as a reminder, the July 20th opinion letter included an opinion for substantial impact. And it included two recommendations, one of which or the second one we're sort of fulfilling today, which is that the applicant has come back in furtherance of completing the preservation plan and data recovery plan. And the first recommendation was that the CRC recommended that the property sites and features be preserved to the maximum extent possible. And I believe where we may be in this is in regards to what the maximum extent possible is in relation to that opinion of substantial impact. There's another option for impact that the chair just read, which is have a limited but acceptable impact. So there's a middle of the road, or we can maintain the opinion and just change the recommendations for next steps. Yeah, up to you guys for discussion. I can help guide what we need.
Was there a significant change between the map we're seeing on the screen now and what we may have seen in July?
Well, one thing I am pretty sure of, and the applicant can confirm this, but I do not believe that the LiDAR aspects or chemical analysis is included in the current draft that has been submitted for our review. I don't think that's included yet. And then as far as the community center and curation proposals and how that's dealt with, I'm not sure. We'd have to ask them, but I'm pretty sure those first two things aren't in the current draft. Is that right?
Solomon, didn't we have the chemical testing?
Or is that in there?
In the
Yeah,
original
the
draft?
EDXRF is in the data recovery plan.
Yeah.
That's part of the data recovery.
Okay.
The LiDAR is to be added after recent consultation.
Okay. So that's one thing we could, that's one thing the CRC could confirm that they're in support of that. If that's the case, and yeah.
And maybe the interpretive signage thing. I'll throw that one out.
That one too. I have, there was some discussion about the positivity of gathering that LiDAR. Not only would it help in, in their engineering of the site, I would imagine, for cut and fill, but also in any curation or presentation for the public. If they do you can do 3D models off of that. If you want something tactile or that it could be up on the screen, the LiDAR can be processed into 3D models and flyovers and things like that. And then I heard also artifacts may be on display in that community center. And then I heard trail interpretive signage as well. So those can all be additional confirmations, recommendations if you see fit. Thanks.
And Gene, maybe I ask you this question. Logistically, we would have a new letter, and that new letter would either have a new recommendation and or sorry, what was the other one? The recommendation and
we can revise the opinion and the recommendations, not to speak for Gene, but
okay. But in all in
Yes, Kevin is correct.
thank you. Okay, back to the team, the commissioners. Looking for a motion here on the floor to help guide this review.
I move that we recommend, you gotta help me now. Adding to the revising the, I don't know what I'm saying, but revising the plan, I guess, to include interpretive signage. What was the other two? Somebody help me, Aaron.
Kevin, interpretive signage, and there was also
The LiDAR.
yeah.
Testing, and what was the third one? Oh God, my brains.
I had trail interpretive signage,
Yeah.
and then I think the rest has to do with curation and community center
yeah.
in regards to how that gets developed.
And yeah, okay, I'm
And what's
adding
included.
all of that into the preservation plan, I guess.
Like, right, like the 3D data capture, any
Yes.
artifacts, things like that.
Yes. I made the motion. I think. Oh.
So the motion I heard was to add or revise to include interpretive signage. And Kevin, maybe just a small point, it wouldn't be only for trails, but also for the general preservation area and possibly the petroglyph area as well.
Okay.
I'm not sure if the green and blue trails, meaning that they weren't there and now they're being resurrected, maybe they get signage too. I'm not sure if Commissioner Clark had some thoughts on that.
I think that the interpretive signage can be worked out with Shifty, but that it should be included.
Thank you. I agree. It's always nice, especially, learning across generations, is to have some signage there telling us not everyone has a phone at all times. Haha. But yeah, having the sign there in the field is very nice to have. So we have a motion on the floor, I believe, from Commissioner Nicole Louie, and I'd like to ask for a second. If anyone needs that reread, we could do that.
Sorry, can you please read
Sure.
it?
Could you reread that again, please?
Sure. So I'm the motion on the floor that I have is that we're going to add or revise the letter to include interpretive signage for the preservation areas and features, and to include curation of various artifacts collected during data recovery at the community center, which would include LiDAR and actual physical abraders and other things discussed.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Desmond.
Do we discuss now or do we wait till it's accepted?
Discuss now, I think, right?
Okay. I wouldn't mind adding a couple things to that list, which would be developing some educational material, perhaps, for the community or schools, as well as I think considering the formal preservation of that central area once they've determined the extent of the development, and including that in the preservation plan as well, would be my suggestions to add.
I was hoping this signage thing would cover additional educational, pathways, especially for our Kiki. Yeah? I mean, that's always been my focus, is how we can preserve this area for our children. So I was hoping that under the signage and preservation that they do reach out to the community, especially for our school.
Yeah, and I was thinking things like you could create a small website that has the 3D model where you could look at the site maybe from the LiDAR or something. I don't want to say what the educational materials is, but beyond the signage, maybe something that can be shared with Keiki from the area.
Okay, yeah.
So I have my awkward question to Jean. Is this a revised motion, or are we doing this correctly?
Sorry, I'm speaking while I'm on mute. If I've been following this correctly, which I'm not 100% sure I have, we had a motion on the table with no second yet.
We had a second.
Have a second.
We did have a second. Okay, sorry. I'm losing track. Okay, and now the question is, we want to maybe modify it a little bit. Okay, so you have two options. Either the if the original maker of the motion and the seconder are in agreement, they could withdraw their original motion, and then you could have somebody make a new motion that reflects the change, or you can leave the original motion on the table, have a sort of intervening motion that would amend it. And so for that one, you would have that motion and its second. You would vote on essentially the motion to amend your original motion. And if that passes, then you would go back and vote on your original motion as it's now been amended. Does that make sense? So you can either do it in a two-part piece, or you can withdraw and do a clean one again.
Sorry, staff here. Can the motion just be clarified that educational materials, that the intent of signage is also an educational material, or can we just add educational materials to the original motion?
Well, if you're modifying your original motion, you really need to do it one of those two ways. Either withdraw the first one and re-articulate the way that you really want it, or you could have a simple motion that, you know, that says we are an intervening one that says by educational stuff, we mean signage and whatnot. So yeah, procedurally, you have those two routes.
I like the intervening one.
Is that a motion?
So it may just be best to withdraw and start over, adding the language from Nicole's original too. Because we pretty much nailed that down. We have trail interpretive signage, artifacts on display, including the LiDAR, and then educational materials, which actually could include those things. So that's why I'm not sure we need a new motion myself, but I'm totally at y'all's.
I also mentioned the preservation of that central area, or inclusion of the central area in the plan. I don't know.
Great point. Actually, yes, that does need to be either a separate or in addition to.
If I could clarify my position, based on what Matt has mentioned, and I stated that signage and preservation would, we've gone through this many times with many applicants, as also with the Borough Council. There's some really strong ancestral history attached to these projects. And a lot of these projects, historical significance hasn't been shared. I think it should be shared so that the community can better understand and grasp what's happening to their community. That's why, thank you, Matt, for mentioning that. But an educational pathway should be created, especially for future developments, because there's a lot of research being done, a lot of it being mentioned in their application. And I think that should be, aside from, being available to public view, but I think that'll be important to have that. And that was my position on that motion. So however, make it easy and legal. Yeah. And it goes right back to Gene. Yeah, I'm muted.
Yeah, again, it's, we kind of have to think about each motion as its own little world, right? So if your original motion captured everything, you can go ahead and vote on that one. It sounds like it didn't really. If you now want to add more stuff, you have the two routes to go down. And apologies again if I missed what the real question is.
Yeah, I think Nicole would agree to that, redoing it, but she did ask for help in creating a motion. So maybe I'll withdraw my second if Nicole will withdraw her motion and redo that, and to include what's being discussed here.
Yeah. Yes, of course.
Okay.
We'll redo the motion.
Okay, so let it be shown.
Okay, Aaron, it's on you, Aaron, now.
The CRC has withdrawn the motion. Commissioner Desmond second and Commissioner Louis first. And so we now are looking for a new motion on the table to include the current conversation. And I'll hand it back to commissioners.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think Nicole would still do her motion, but she
Yeah,
needs to be helped with the verbiage, I guess you could say.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'll redo the motion and to include what Matt had said with preservation of that central area to be included along with the LiDAR, with the preservation of the artifacts and stuff. I think I'm saying it right. And signage. Is that right, Aaron?
And I think educational.
Or educational, okay. That's what I was trying to get.
Could I ask staff to read us back one? I didn't.
Yeah, I'll give it a try. The motion was moving to recommend that the the draft preservation plan, the draft data recovery plan incorporate interpretive signage, including trails, sites, petroglyphs, or other appropriate preservation areas and features. And some of those features or artifacts from the site should be incorporated into a community center, along with the 3D from the LiDAR somehow.
Yes.
And those things sort of, in my mind anyway, fall under a blanket of educational materials to be developed as part of the preservation plan. And then that the preservation plan also include the middle area on the site plan as well.
Does that sound like a good read of the first motion?
Nicole.
Yeah, before we, does not.
I tried.
I tried.
And so maybe now we're looking for a second.
Yes.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Desmond. So Commissioner Nicole Louis had the motion, seconded by Commissioner Desmond Homea. And I'd like to call for a roll call vote. Or sorry, is there discussion? I'm sorry, discussion? Any discussion at this time? I don't know who this Robert guy is, but he's got a lot of rules.
Robert hasn't met Lopaka yet, that's why. I call for the vote.
So let's go ahead and proceed, staff, if you wouldn't mind roll call vote.
Not at all. Nicole? Or
Aye.
Chairman Louis?
Aye.
Okay. Commissioner Helmea.
Aye.
Thank you, Desmond. Commissioner Mahoney.
Aye.
Commissioner Clark.
Aye.
Commissioner Keakealani.
Aye.
Commissioner Kinney.
Aye.
Chair Spielman.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimous.
Okay, thank you very much. That closes our old business for today. We're going to open new business now.
Oh, I think we lost your audio a bit, Aaron.
Sorry, thank you for unsharing your screen. Thank you. We'll go ahead and start new business now. We have
Mr. Spielman, this is Stanford Carr. I just want to thank everyone for the time and all of the discussions over the last few months, especially those who came out to the site. Thank you very much for taking the time and walking the site. Kuile, Matt, all of you, thank you. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, and aloha.
Aloha. Thank you, Mr. Carr.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started on the new business. John J. Andrade Senior Building. This is PL-CRC-2023-000010. Nomination. Consideration for the Hawaiʻi Register of Historic Places and recommendation for the National Register of Historic Places. Location is 45-493 Lehua Street, Honoka'a, Hawaii, 96727. TMKs is actually 2. This island 3, 4-5-016:021 and 058. Aloha mai kako. The planning department was provided a copy of the subject historic register nomination on August 25th, 2023 for review and consideration by the Hawaii County Cultural Resources Commission at the CRC's scheduled meeting on October 18th, 2023. Today, the CRC will make a recommendation to the mayor based on whether the subject property meets the criteria for nominations on the state and national registers as set forth by the Hawaii Administrative Rules, Title 13, Chapter 198, HAR Section 13-198 for inclusion on the state register and Code of Federal Regulations, Title 36, Part 60, 36 CFR Part 60, for nomination on the national register. After review, the County of Hawaii Mayor's recommendation will go to the State Historic Places Review Board, who will then either nominate or reject the subject property for inclusion onto the registers. This item is a nomination to the Hawaii Register of Historic Places and National Register of Historic Places. The Commission shall review the nominations to the Hawaii Register against the criteria set forth by Title 13, Chapter 198, HAR, relating to the Hawaii and National Registers of Historic Places programs. The Commission shall review the nomination to the National Register against the criteria set forth by Title 36, Part 60, Code of Federal Regulations relating to the National Register of Historic Places. According to our rules, after the Commission has reviewed all materials and public testimony pertaining to a project, the Commission may A, determine that the nomination does or does not meet the criteria for nomination to the Hawaii or National Register of Historic Places, or B, determine that the materials supplied with the nomination do not contain sufficient information to evaluate the nomination against the criteria set forth by Title 13, Chapter 198, HAR, or Title 36, Part 60, CFR. Staff, care of the Commission, will forward a report to the Mayor, including findings on whether the property meets the criteria for nomination and a recommendation that the State Historic Preservation Officer either nominate or reject the proposed nomination. The Mayor shall have 15 days after receiving the report to send this report and a recommendation to the State Historic Preservation Officer. The Mayor's recommendation may, but need not concur with the recommendation contained in the Commission's report. At this time, I would like to request Laura Ruby, member of the Historic Honoka'a Town Project, to make a presentation on the Andrade's property nomination to the CRC.
Okay, thank you very much. If Marlene is on, I cannot see her in the participants. Marlene, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, feel free to comment anytime you want. Okay, as I go through the presentation, please.
Sorry, just to interrupt real quick. Sorry, did we want public testimony?
Sort of now.
Oh,
Yeah.
Public testimony from the.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry, Kevin. Can we ask for public testimony at this time? I'm sorry, Mrs. Ruby. Sorry about that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want me to continue, or do you want to wait for Marlene's comments later? What is your instruction?
Jean, what do you want?
We should take public testimony now at the beginning. Yes.
For the confusion, folks. Yes, let's please take public testimony now.
Okay. You can.
There's no way to focus on the people in this room.
Let me try with the trusty camera here.
Oh, yeah.
That's me. Okay. Thank you.
Cool.
There you go.
Okay.
Hi, Marlene.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
that'll pick you up.
Okay. Well, bom dia, aloha kakahiaka, and good morning, commissioners. I'm Dr. Marlene Andrade Dankbar Hapai, eldest granddaughter of John J. Andrade Sr. and professor and regent emeritus, University of Hawaii. Aloha. You know, I never knew my grandfather, John J. Andrade Sr., but my whole life has benefited from the fruits of his labors. As a child, I sometimes stayed in the beautiful home he built for my grandmother. And from the ages of 6 to 17, I helped in the restaurant with its adjoining bar and learned not only the hospitality trade, but how to work with people. It would take many years from the passing of my grandmother's generation to my mother's and then to mine to change my focus from what I was to become to where I came from. In 2008, after the passing of my mother and her two sisters within 10 months, I was standing outside the Andrade building, and a 10-year-old from Honoka Elementary School, a fifth grader, approached me and asked me about the Andrade building. This question prompted my search for her answer and information that would take me back to a period in time when much of Honoka and the Andrade building, through my grandfather's foresight and hard work, came to be. Using interviews with my mother from previous years and spending time with my last living uncle, William Andrade, I was able to capture the essence of the Andrade building and some of Honoka's history in this flyer, which I will leave to be included with your meeting. My grandfather, J.J. Sr., had a short but very productive life. His earlier life would educate his siblings who became doctors, school administrators, and artists, and then on to acquiring 500 acres of land, thereby becoming a rancher and butcher, going camp to camp, selling his wares, and on to establishing the Andrade building, one of 7 Portuguese-owned buildings in Honoka'a. He would have done much more, but it would be his wife, Rose, and children to carry on his legacy, and today his grandchildren, who continue to own and operate the Andrade building with plans to celebrate its 100th anniversary in 2024. I am honored at this time as a representative of our Andrade family to ask you to approve the Andrade building, one of Honoka'a's historic cornerstones, hereby named the John J. Andrade Sr. Building, to be nominated to be included in the Hawaii Register of Historic Places and recommended for the National Register of Historic Places. Muito obrigada, mahalo, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Okay, now we're going to go back. Is there any more public testimony, staff?
No, Chairman.
Okay, very good. Okay, now I'd like to call on Laura Ruby, please, and we'll do deja vu this back into existence. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to share screen. Okay, first of all, thank you all for inviting us to the very good presentations of the CRC. And Marlene, thank you so much for coming and giving the historical background for the family. And what I'm going to do is I just want to give you just a slight background. The Historic Honoka Town project has probably about 20 or more nominations, successful nominations to the state and national historic registers already. And the Andrade building is one of the current ones that we're working on, and we'll be having some future ones also. So the fact that we have tried to build the whole town back again, and it starts out with Ross Stevenson, who's the leader of it, with his wife, Carol Miyazaki Stevenson. She grew up in Pauilo at the Miyazaki store, and they came repeatedly to the family home and business, and they wanted to say, well, if they saw things being torn down in Pauilo, and they said, if we could save something, what could we save? And the town, the Honoka town, was the really the best way to do it, because there's almost a whole mile of historic buildings along the stretch, which are all territorial and statehood period buildings. So that is sort of the general background, but of course we have also a multi-property study that gives a much more in-depth of the whole area, and as well as larger Hawaii concerns. And then we have taken each one of the individual buildings and we have gone through everything. I might say that just to, we go before, in November, we go before the SHPD review board, and then presumably after it is approved at the board. And like I said, there's over 20 that they have approved already. And going on to what we usually do is we usually then ask the owners if they would wish to have a bronze plaque put on the building. And then we work towards that end. And then we usually ask for parapet lettering, but you can see that the Andrade building has parapet lettering now, and we probably wouldn't want to supersede that. We would leave it up to Marlene's discretion if she wants. But many of the buildings never had parapet lettering, or they had it hand painted and it were offered was painted over or something like that. So let me just give you, I'm going to go sort of as the nomination occurs and what the major points are that are supposed to be covered in the nomination. And it's a collective group of people that work on the project. So besides Ross Stevenson, myself, and architectural historians, Bureau of Conveyances experts, researchers, and all of us that are historians and have other kinds of background skills, photography, and plan and elevation views and so forth. So this is the building today, as you see it. By the way, I have a theory of telephone poles, that they seem to always stay in the same place. So sometimes when you're trying to locate things currently and things in the past, you go to the telephone poles and you know where you are. Okay. So this is okay. So here's just to give you some of the background. I hope I'll be quick enough. If you tell me to speed up, I can speed up. It's in Lahaina, Ahupua'a, important intersection of the government road, the old government road, and the road Makai to the Haina Mill and Mauka to Waimea. And all of these in the early days were all done by mule or donkey or horse or whatever, and done in very short spaces of within a day's period too. The history of the peoples, initial sparse settlement by native Hawaiians on the Waina lands of the Hamakua district. As you probably all know, there's extreme cliff faces and extreme gulches everywhere there. So they would have picked the whatever the initial pathways were probably to be easily transversed, I think. The early European and Americans began commercial agriculture in the mid-19th century. That had to do after the Land Commission Awards, and the Mahele Commission changed things, and it went from Hawaiian to European Americans to finally to the Portuguese Americans we're talking about today. The Chinese Americans came to work on the plantations and later became entrepreneurs and intermarrying with Hawaiians. Today, the Chinese population is not very much in evidence. However, with intermarrying, the Hawaiian and the Chinese are still present. The Portuguese immigrants came to work on the plantations and soon became homesteaders in farming and ranching. And they also came with their families. And that allows for us to say that they were really ready to stay. Others groups may have gone elsewhere or returned to homelands. And then there was the Japanese immigrants making up the largest ethnic group, came to work on the plantations, and they soon became entrepreneurs also. And then the Korean and the Filipino immigrants followed, and also they remain in town, although not too many Korean families visible. And to give you a sense of the maps that are included within the nomination, just showing you the overall view of the Hawaii Island and Haina in a very early map, and then Honoka'a today, with Haina being in green. And another close-up, these are the official maps. It shows this is the main intersection right there. And I think, can you see my cursor? I hope you can. Whoops, here we are. this is the main intersection right here. This is the government road, and this is the main intersection to Haina Camp and up to Waimea. And this is what we have done also, besides the National Park Service standard informational signs, which was talked about in the last segment of your meeting. We have put up informational signs according, within the standards. And we have also done a map that's a folded brochure that is set up in all of the various buildings in town and maybe Hilo also, for people to be able to pick up. And it's basically a walking tour, and it can show you some of the interesting information about the buildings, and you can walk through. And we also have a book called Honoka'a Town, and that's also based, the format of it is basically you could carry it with you and you could walk along the street and find out more information historically if you'd like. And this is the TMK, just to show you the T-shaped part, the upper part was added on later simply so the garage could have access. And that was an agreement between the plantation and the Ikiuchis. The Ikiuchi hardware store just closed in the last few months, was almost 100 years old with 3 generations. And that was a great nomination to do also. And this is just Google Earth view of it. So you can see the buildings, they're actually very, very close and almost contiguous together. They may look like they're separate, but they are. These two run right together, and this one really is semi-attached also, is attached also. And that's only because the building periods, it was easy to build onto other buildings. And I won't go through all of this, but you can see over a period of time, there have been changes to various internal configurations, but none of the external dimensions have ever been changed. And they are to the public exactly what they would have found in we'll say 1926. And I'll go into that in a minute. And what Marlene has said and what is true is it probably was in the early days. I'm going to go on to the next one. Let's see. Okay. The reason why I'm saying this is our map. This is a Sanborn map. And you see the sort of the Kapakahi frontage of the building. And that was probably, they were probably there with Chinese merchants leased or whatever, owned by the Rickard families. And then finally, after their leases came due, then the Andrades were able to purchase the property. So they may have been living on the property. That we don't know because nobody had street addresses in Honoka'a. So always, and even today, the way you refer to people is, oh, they're at the Andrade building, or they're at the Ferrera building, or, Fuji, the Yamato building or something like that. And so what probably we think happened is that as the government road was straightened out and they did some grading along it, it was straightened to conform to the street level. And that might have been either a whole shifting of the building, as you know, many of the buildings on the Big Island and elsewhere too were lifted up and moved around or taken apart with the original materials and put back together again. So that's basically what we think is the reason why the Andrade family was actually there in 1924, but we don't have any proof, so we have to say 1926 was the actual purchase of the property. And this is a Japanese map, and you can just see this is the configuration of the building there. And then just to give you some of the architectural background that rests on the commercial building, that's all the frontage building, rests on a concrete foundation. The walls are of tongue and groove, single board construction. The roof is totan, corrugated iron. The second floor front facade has 5 sets of double hung windows. The ohia lanai, which is makai, rests on a concrete foundation with a post and pier extension. Walls are of tongue and groove single board construction, and the roof is totan. The Andrade Hotel, which has not been in use for many, many years, rests on posts and piers. Walls are of tongue and groove, single board construction. Roof is totan, corrugated iron. The residential structure, also Makai, of the commercial building has 2 stories, reflecting the slope of the parcel. And I might just add, Honoka'a Town is built on an extreme slope. So we have, over the historical period of time, there have been huge floods, which have just literally almost inundated the town with mud and debris and everything else too. So it may not look like it from the street view, but there's actually a great slope that goes down towards the Pali, so forth. And then the residential structure is Mackay of the commercial building, has 2 stories reflecting the slope of the parcel. The residential structure has a wood floor supported by posts on a concrete stone curbing. Walls are of tongue and groove, single board construction. The roof is totan. So all these are the local materials that were regularly used during the the plantation days. In other words, the territorial period and the early statehood period, and they continue to be used today also. The garage rests on concrete foundation. The walls are of CMU and metal with wood posts and supports, and the roof is totan. And the commercial building remains in good condition and retains its massing, scale, and such character-defining elements as the structure's front elevation windows, doors, shed-roofed awning, and false front with its bracketed cornice. The Ohia Lanai and the Andrade residence also remains in good condition. And the Andrade Hotel, after 1977 fire, has been renovated, has not been renovated, pardon me, and rather serves as storage. The walls are single-wall construction and double-hung windows. And then again, these are the criteria that we all use in doing the nominations. And the property, the Andrade property, is eligible under criterion A and criterion C. And this is due to the, and I'll read further down under criterion A, the significant and local level under criterion A, as the structures typify the hard work of second-generation Portuguese Americans to improve their economic status. It is also coming together of Hawaiian Chinese, and Japanese ethnic backgrounds. Under criterion C, architecture, the property is significant at the local level as a good example of plantation-era architecture, that is wood, commercial building, Ohia Lanai residence, hotel, and garage construction in Hawaii during the early decades of the 20th century. The property retains its integrity and so is an excellent example of structures purely for business purposes with adjacent rear residence and garage. And this was common along the street. It's either the residence was behind or the residence was above, depending on which side of the street you lived on, and the ease in which you could build on the slope of the land. And then the property retains its historical integrity in terms of location, design, setting, materials, workmanship, feeling, and association. Those are the criteria that are used for the integrity to be determined. And whoops, back again, just okay, just a few historical images. This is the, right here is the Andrade building right here. It looks like 3 stories, but it's really 2 stories. And then here is the adjacent part of the building, which is perhaps, I think they were all contiguous, but whatever it is, at a later point, this was built up to the 2nd story, as you see today in the lower right, which is the upstairs, all with 5 double hung windows. And then the signage, which was neon sign, which was great. It was up for many, many years, but is had to be taken down probably because it's heavy signs are very difficult to maintain on a wood structure. And then this, the one on the right shows you the pumping station, that is the fuel and the gas. Right next to it, that's the Ikeuchi hardware store. But this is all of the Andrade building. And then what the Andrades were really remarkable people, I should say, John J. Andrade Sr., because he started all of these things, but they had the bus service, and they also had, and this is the footprint that I found on the edge of the sidewalk, still there for the gas pump. And up and down the street, so many of the mom and pops had gas stations, service stations. They of course were taken out at a later time because people felt that some car might run into them and cause a fire through the whole town, I believe. And so they were, everybody had their individual, place where they went to get gas and oil. And this is going around the actual building. This is the left is the facade, the front facade on Mamani Street. This goes between the Kotaki building, and on the left is the Andrade building. It's just a walkway that really is the Kotaki building's property. And then behind, on the Mackay side, are sort of built-on add-ons for the original parts of the building. Over here on the lower left is what you're seeing is actually the old hotel that was never refurbished, but the entrance, but they're actually behind the boarding, and it has to do with fire regulations and all, that the windows were boarded up and it has not been restored. This window is open because that's the stairway, the light to the stairway. This is a restroom area that's for the Ohia Lanai. And then over here on the right side, as you can see the residences on the left and the Ohia Lanai is on the right on the properties. And a little bit of historical background. This is Rose Andrade and her daughter in the bar. And you may have read the story, which is always a fun one. During World War II, the military came down in thousands of people. And this was one of the many bars in town. And they would regularly fill up the bar with drinks ready for the soldiers when they came in. And it was a really kind of a family situation where Rose was called Mom oftentimes and so forth. It was in other words, there was no, by the way, there was no liquor in Waimea where the soldiers were stationed. So Honoka'a became a real watering hole. And this early picture of the young women working in the Honoka'a Cafe. And I asked Marlene to draw a map, which I then reconfigured a little bit with her approval. And that just shows that there are two double doors, which you see here, the two double doors. Then inside you could go between the two. So you could have family dining and you could have the bar activities also. And just to show you a few more images, there were a lot of advertising, the advertising was very interesting because a lot of it was done in the Honoka'a yearbooks, the school yearbooks, as well as other places also. And this is the current interior of the cafe and with the original cash register. And this is the interior of the Ohia Lanai. Very hard to get pictures of it because it's very close, the exterior, because it's built into the commercial building basically, and also very close to the residence and the other properties. And so you can see, if you look around, of course, the Ohia is the signature image of the Ohia Lanai and throughout the wall treatments also. And this was originally, as you can see in the upper left, it was originally open, which was actually quite nice, but I guess I don't know the reason why, but perhaps it was the trade winds or something like that, that they enclosed this area, and they also built the stage up. The stage is there, but they just made the stage a little more formal, and that was for music, was held all the time. And just a little closer, that's a match cover in the center, matchbox match cover. Yeah. And then because the Andrade started out, Andrade Sr. started out with acquiring property, lots and lots of property was acquired in Halualoa, just Mauka of Honoka'a, and that was homestead land largely to people living in the area, and of course keeping people possibly working on the plantation also. But the Andrades took the route to raise cattle, to have a slaughterhouse, and to take part in what became later on the rodeos and the horse racing and everything else. And this is the Rose Andrade Correa Stadium. She later, after Andrade passed away of horse accident, or I should say a ranching accident, I guess. She later married Correa, another family member, and together, anyway, this was the stadium that is still today with really good usage of all the various rodeo activities. And this is some of the associated things that go on in the town. And you can see the Honoka'a Cafe behind, and then you also see the Western Week and all of the various things that they did there. And this is the residence behind. You can see, I've just walked you around the various sides of the building. It's a standard plantation style house with a little bit extra of the detailing and flourish, the native rock bluestone entry here and the pillar, which is, those are typical of more the 30s when this was built. But basically it is a plantation style house. And this is interior. You can see the living room, which joins the dining room area, and then the kitchen area, which is off to the side. The handles are to be earthquake proof, which you can imagine after the earthquake went in the 80s, all the dishes falling everywhere in people's houses. So it's to keep them safe. And this is the earliest picture that Marlene was able to find of her grandmother standing there at what we think is the entrance to their home site. This is actually the hotel site, but they may have been living in there also. And I'm not quite sure if they were living over in the commercial building, but that was prior to 1932 when they built the residence and moved in officially. So you can just see that the burned out area was not refurbished. The lower right is the garage. And just without going into the historical information, which is in the nomination, but one of the really nice things that Marlene has done is she provided a file cabinet, fireproof file cabinet that has all of the Andrade history as well as Portuguese history in the community. And I'm not showing you all of the Portuguese celebrations and things like that, the Holy Ghost Festival and all of the making of the bread, the pandus and the Portuguese bean soup and so forth, but they're all in the nomination. And so this is the formal way in a nomination, which you would add, you would make sure that you have covered all your bases. And so it's the registration requirements. And then this is, it's in historical and architectural resources of Haina, Ahupua'a, Hamakua District, Honaka'a Town, Hawaii Island, Hawaii type plantation vernacular. That just gives all the specific information required in a nomination. And then the justification, the period of significance, I've already mentioned that somewhat, because the actual purchase of the property was in 1926. And we're very happy to include the family lore, the family setting that was actually there in 1924, but we don't have any proof other than what the family has been able to tell us. So maybe it will show up someday, we hope. And from that time, following the death of John J. Andrade Sr. up to 1973, that's the end of the historical period of the commercial building, has served commercial purposes with multi-retail establishments. Its plantation style today retains all the major characteristics of the original building's architecture. Likewise, the residence building also retains all the major characteristics of the original building's architecture. And then it's significant under criterion A. It's serving as an incubator for the entrepreneurial dreams of second generation Portuguese Americans to establish their own enterprises. And that, of course, would be when the Andrades came, had their presence on Mamani Street, all of their meat slaughterhouse and meat selling then came down to Mamani Street also at that time. So it's the period of significance is it always ends with 50-year significance. It's very significant still today, but we end it at the period of significance. So if a nomination came in next year, it would be a 1974, for example. Excuse me. And then the properties, 5 buildings also significant under criterion C is a good example of wood, commercial, and residential buildings constructed in Hawaii. These buildings reflect a good example of the 20s era construction under criterion C, and the 1926 begins the period of significance. And excuse me, the property retains its integrity. And so it's an excellent example of structures erected purely for business purposes with rear residence and garage. Oops. Okay. Up there. Oh, this is the final slide. Okay, so again, we're back to the front facade on Mamani Street, and I'm just showing you. And again, you can see how closely abutted the buildings on either side are. The Ikiuchis on the left, the Waipio side, and the Kotaki on the right, or the Hilo side. So if you have questions, I'd be very happy to answer them. And if Marlene I don't know if it's appropriate according to your rules, but she also could answer any questions also. So thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you very much, Laura Ruby.
Mahalo, Laura. I was ready to make a motion to accept right after Marlene.
Sorry. Let's
I have
have
a
discussion
personal-
first, Uncle Des. Let's have discussion first, please. We need to do that first.
I'm discussing right now.
Okay.
I have a personal relationship with Andrade Hotel. I was there when opening of the Rose Stadium. We played music there. I took my students from Ka'umekikaio to experience that part of history over there. My dad was a dispatcher for the tour companies, so we would spend nights there at the hotel. I just had lunch there about a week ago. My family, the Anton family, is related to families from Honoka'a as well as the Filipino side. We always go to the Filipino fiestas there. And so I'm really connected to the hotel. Also, Sensei Ekeuchi was also a martial artist. When we went to tournaments, we'd spend nights there because of Sensei Ekeuchi. So yeah, if you want to discuss, I'm very familiar with this property. And like I said, after Marlene was done, I was ready to do a motion to accept this nomination.
Thanks, Desmond. I think I have a couple questions. I'm hoping Laura Ruby can answer. I'm not sure. Gene, can you weigh in if
Marlene is the property owner. I just want to add that.
And is it acceptable if Marlene also answers questions? Gene?
It's bending the rules a little bit, but
Yeah,
I think as the property owner, it would be appropriate.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, a lot of these things are maybe historical questions. Ms. Ruby, please, if you wouldn't mind, there was a historical photograph that you shared with us. It was probably page 4 or 5 of the slide deck, where the right-hand side, the east side of the building was there, the south side of the building was not built up as high.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. Just a second.
Yeah, you kind of looking down the street at it.
Yeah.
That one. Go back one.
Yes. Sorry. There. Okay. You're talking about the left one.
Yes. Yes. So sorry, I'm an architect, so my eyes work a little differently, but I just wanted to ask a couple of questions. We're looking at the far back massing buildings. Is that correct? Back photo? Is the Andrade Hotel?
Yeah,
Okay.
this is Andrade right here.
Right.
Okay.
So
that's
that
Andrade right here too. This Ikeuchi you can barely see back in here, and this is the Kotaki and Hirata building, and this is probably where the Rickards were, but it may or may not have been. We're not sure. It could be the.
Okay, let's focus on the Andrade building. What I see is a parapet or a higher roof plane sloping down, and that'll be your parapet wall where there's it's been extended. Currently, we can see in the bottom right photograph, right? It's extended over that volume missing in the back left.
Right.
What I see on the front facade, there are 3 windows, but what I see on the Andrade Hotel, I guess what I'm not sure is if you can point out on the Andrade Hotel picture in the bottom right, there's a vertical trim piece that seems to designate where that transition occurred. And if you could please explain when that happened and maybe how that relates to the historical photograph.
Well, first of all, a lot of our information does come from the field books. Thank goodness for the field books, but they started in 1938. So we don't know what improvements might have been made other than what is recorded in the field books, unless there would be some family document or something that said the carpenter did this or that or whatever. So we don't know, but that I believe is where they realigned things, and it might have been because, as you see down here, this is the stairway to go upstairs to what was originally the dance hall, but then became the apartments. And I'm sorry, the individual, I missed his name, might have stayed in these apartments, which were refurbished after 1977, probably. If it was before 1977, he might have stayed in the older hotel, but I'm really not sure about that. When the Paniolos would come to town for various reasons and all, and rodeos and things like that, they would all sleep very many to a room in the old hotel situation, and then later on I think in the actual apartments.
Sure. sorry, not to get off track here. I think I'm more interested in maybe, do we have any indication of when that extra parapet length was added? And possibly when those windows may have changed from 3 to 2 on the original hotel side?
There's moving around of the interior structure a bit, I think. And I believe that the seam is just there because of the stairway that had to be put in and accommodated to get to all of the people, all the downsole originally and the other rooms that were up there. I'm not sure because we can't find specific information, but I think I've shown some places where I can show you where there's, building structures that have changed, that have moved the interiors around. And by the way, it was a normal practice to move the windows around also, so that if there were 3 windows at some time, there might have been 2 another time, or so forth. So I can't answer that specifically. I wish I could.
I think it's important just to understand the sequence of when work was done and for why, and it goes to the story of the building and the uses of the building. And so, yeah, we're always looking in historical architecture about subtle changes that occur over time, including, if I can point out, it looks like the cornice was improved with the bracketing, including that rhythmic repetition of the small, large brackets at the cornice. And in the historic photograph, it looks more like what I would call an undetailed roof. Although it's hard to tell in the photograph, I admit the closer building, the Rickards building, definitely looks like it's got that cornice bracket detail.
Yeah, they all do actually, or most of them do actually. Most of the buildings.
It's hard to tell in the old photograph.
It's sort of the extra special detail that they put into the buildings.
Yeah. So, okay. And then are there any, master builders or architects involved or engineers involved with the construction of this building, which seems to be one of the important key kind of historical things. And I wanted to know if you discovered anything like that.
Not unless I put it in the nomination, because other buildings do have the known architects or builders. More often they were builders rather than architects. So I do not have the information. We have a little bit of who might have constructed it, added on things. The Ohio Lanai, I think, had the builder. I'd have to look back into the nomination to find out the person's name. But that was in 52 to 53 that was constructed. Okay.
And then maybe the last question I have is, I'd heard the dates 1924, I'd heard the dates 1926. When was the actual hotel, as we see it in the top left photograph, when was that actually originally constructed?
The only way we can date that photograph is by the cars, which are probably in the 1920s. So,
sorry, not the photograph, but when was the original building constructed?
All we can
Chairman,
see.
I'm really sorry to interrupt. We were running the risk of losing quorum for a vote. I think I saw Uncle Des needs to leave. So if we can just I add that.
Okay.
Take it as you will.
Okay, so that truncates our discussion. If there's anyone else that'd like to add to discussion.
Yeah, I think if you look at the maps, you can see that they were there in place for 1914.
1914, that's a solid date. So end of World War I.
It's the maps. What was maybe altered or changed on the actual building is, at the later time, which the Sanborn map will show that it was reconfigured or perhaps rebuilt or perhaps, original materials just reconfigured.
Sure. On the concrete foundations.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. I have Commissioner Clark raising his hand.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I too also have to leave at noon, Chair. So but just very quickly, I want to say I really enjoyed this nomination. I thought it was very well done, and I would Commissioner Homea that I definitely support the listing on the National Register, and I appreciate all you guys are doing in Honoka'a to protect those historic buildings. My only comment, which is a minor one, I would have loved to see at the end why it's not significant under criteria B or D, but that's minor, and that was my only comment. Thank you.
But if I could say, we don't normally put in the significant people. We put it in the appendix. We put in a short family histories. We were told early on that we shouldn't have so much of the family overwhelming the nomination. So that's sort of the reason why it happened that way.
So
I got a quick question.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, I know you gotta leave, Uncle, but
We gotta stay until it's over.
okay, I just wanted to say that in the first frame, Chinese intermarrying with Hawaiians, didn't the other nationalities or immigrants intermarry with Hawaiians as well? I was wondering if that could be removed.
What, I don't understand the question here.
The Chinese intermarrying with Hawaiians,
Yes,
the
that happened.
first frame. I know
Yes.
it happened, but didn't the other immigrants also intermarry with Hawaiian people?
Yes, absolutely. And that takes place in each one of the discussions of the buildings, like the Ikiuchis, Hawaiian Chinese, then married Japanese. And so the Ikiuchi is the name that's carried, which is Japanese.
Yes, I understand that. Okay. I just wanted to point that out. It's just like it was only the Chinese who married Hawaiians.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Everybody is very hapa.
Yeah.
So I think we're a little off topic too. I understand that that's in the nomination document.
Yeah.
But this is about the structure and the buildings.
Thank you.
Oh, I
And-
understand. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I have
I'm just
one-
trying to get a motion before we lose quorum. It sounds like a favorable recommendation, Chairman, but I'll let you guys finish that up, please.
Sure. I have my final question, I promise. After Lahaina being so prevalent in our minds, how do we protect these important buildings from potential of things that are outside of our control? And is there any discussion with putting in fire sprinklers in this building or in buildings that are very close together?
Who's that question directed towards?
Just a general question, but I'm not sure it has anything to do with the historic aspects, only that there's maybe some plans to do things with the building and how is that?
Well, I know that once they're nominated, they'll be open to additional funding that could actually fund something like that a little bit more readily, potentially, but we need to make a motion to get them nominated first.
Sounds like everyone's tired. Let's just go to a motion. And if I could ask for a motion from the table for the commissioners, then we can second and vote on this.
I made a motion to accept this nomination. And I do know from past history that whenever you get into the historical designation, part of that criteria for all buildings is to have a certified fire system installed to protect the building. So that's not part of the motion, but I just moved to accept this nomination, if that's adequate enough.
I'll second the motion.
Great. Any discussion? No discussion. Let's call a roll call vote, please, Chair, or sorry, staff.
Yes, was that Commissioner Clark?
I seconded.
You seconded.
Commissioner Homea made the motion.
Yeah, Commissioner Homea?
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner Clark?
Aye.
Commissioner Kinney?
Aye.
Commissioner Keakealani?
Aye.
Commissioner Louie?
Aye.
Commissioner Mahoney?
Aye.
Chair Spielman?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimous.
Great. Can we do the meeting notes real quick? Can I get a motion on to meeting notes?
Yeah, just real quick, staff will prepare both of these letters for the mayor's signature and your signature, Chair Spielman.
Thank you.
Supporting a favorable recommendation and that it's consistent and all that good stuff.
Okay, I'm going to close this business. I'm going to move to
Thank you.
administrative matters. We will take approval of minutes from the administrative matters. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the Cultural Resources Commission meeting held on September 13th, 2023?
Yes, one second.
To approve the minutes from the last Cultural Resources Commission meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I move to approve the minutes. If there's a motion needed.
Okay, so we got a second by Commissioner Homea. Thank you very much. Any discussion?
Okay.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
I have one more motion that we adjourn.
Minutes approved as circulated or amended. The next meeting is going to be on November 8th. or the 15th, and I'm deferring to staff on that if we've had any applicants.
As of now, I'm unaware of any business, either old or new, for the next November meeting, but I do know that we may have some commission business to cover.
Yes, and so I
So
would
we
like
can hold it for that.
I'd like to hold our meeting for November 8th at 10 a.m., please, commissioners. We're almost done with this year. And adjournment. This concludes the items on this agenda. Can I have a motion to adjourn this meeting? I think I heard Commissioner Desmond make that motion.
I second.
No, Commissioner Louis seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, this meeting's adjourned.
Aye.
Aye.
Mahalo.
Thank you all.
Aloha.
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 Aloha.